Good morning, you guys. Today we're going to talk about what is close reading and annotating. Today you're going to learn about close reading and its importance when we are reading new texts. So why do we close read? Text should be read multiple times. Close reading involves slow and careful reading and rereading, which leads to deeper understanding. Close reading is another word for annotating in a sense, and I know we've all heard that word before. So close reading or annotating makes students better at examining, analyzing, and evaluating the why and how of a text. So what does close reading look like? When you're close reading, you should always have a pencil or highlighter in your hand. Close reading is active reading. Now I want you guys to have a highlighter and a sense in your hand, but that doesn't mean go crazy with the highlighter and highlight the whole story. If we've just highlighted the entire story, we've essentially just made the text a pretty color. Close reading looks like this. We have questions near the title, we have summaries off to the side, we have notes signifying different pieces of the elements of the text. And we're going to keep this in mind as we go forward. And so what does it not look like? Again, we don't want to highlight the entire story because this does nothing for us. We've just made the text yellow. That's it. So the most important part about close reading is that you're reading a text more than once. For instance, when I watch a movie more than once, I always notice more details about the movie that I did not see the first time. The same can be said about reading. Typically, when you read an article or a story for the first time, we really just look at it for its face matter. We can't really dig deep into the meaning behind a story until we've read it more than once. So in order to annotate successfully, you must do so with a goal in mind. And a goal just means that when you are annotating, you are actually going in and looking for something in particular. So today we're going to be using a notice and note strategy to help us annotate a text. So you're going to hear me say stop, notice, and note quite a bit. So today we're going to be taking a look at what contrasts and contradictions are. It says right here, you will mark the text when you're reading and a character says or does something that's opposite what he's been doing all along. So it's a contradiction, right? We see him or her doing one thing, and then they go off and do something completely different. And so this is identifying contrasts and contradictions, and you'll be identifying these in your assigned text today. So contrasts and contradictions. When you're identifying these, you should stop and ask yourself, why is the character doing that? The answers could help you make a prediction or make an inference about the plot and conflict. And here's a little tip over here. If you've already read Thank You Ma'am by Langston Hughes last week, then you kind of have an idea of what a character contrast looks like. And so we're going to take a look at that today. Now, I'm going to read through Thank You Ma'am by Langston Hughes to you guys. And this story is just about a boy who tries to steal a purse from a woman. And I want you guys to follow along as I read it to you. She was a large woman with a large purse that had everything in it but hammer and nails. It had a long strap and she carried it slung across her shoulder. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and she was walking alone, when a boy ran up behind her and tried to snatch her purse. The strap broke with a single tug the boy gave it from behind, but the boy's weight and the weight of the purse combined caused him to lose his balance. So instead of taking off full blast as he'd hoped, the boy fell on his back on the sidewalk, and his legs flew up. The large woman simply turned around and kicked him square in his blue jeans sitter. Then she reached down, picked the boy up by his front shirt, and shook him until his teeth rattled. After that the woman said, "Pick up my pocketbook, boy, and give it here." She still held him, but bent down enough to permit him to stoop and pick up her purse. Then she said, "Now ain't you ashamed of yourself?" Firmly gripped by his shirt front, the boy said, "Yes'm." The woman said, "What did you want to do it for?" The boy said, "I didn't aim to." And she said, "You a lie." By that time 2 or 3 people passed, stopped, turned to look, and some stood watching. "If I turn you loose, will you run?" asked the woman. "Yes'm," said the boy. "Then I won't turn you loose," said the woman. She did not release him. "I'm very sorry, lady. I'm sorry," whispered the boy. "Uh-huh, and your face is dirty. I got a great mind to wash your face for you. Ain't you got nobody at home to tell you to wash your face?" "No'm," said the boy. "Then it will get washed this evening," said the large woman, starting up the street, dragging the frightened boy behind her. I'm going to stop here because as I'm reading, I'm alert for contrast or contradictions. And when I spot one, I want to pause and ask myself, why would the character act this way? At this point, I'm surprised that the woman does what she does. If someone tried to steal something of mine and I caught him, I don't think my first impulse would be to take him home and wash his face. She's acting in a way that contrasts with what I'd expect, so I'm going to ask myself why I'd expect her to haul him off to the police station. But she does the opposite. She takes him home to clean him up. Why would she do this? I have to say that I'm not sure. Perhaps she knows this boy's mother and so she thinks she should take care of him? I don't know. I just don't know enough about her at this point. So, if you've noticed, I've already highlighted this. What you do is you'll just take your cursor and you'll hover over the portions that you want to pinpoint, and then you'll select highlight. And now, since this is a contradiction, I'm going to choose a red highlight, and then you can highlight it again and select text. And so now I'm going to say contrast and contradiction. Done. So I've made my mark and I've annotated. And y'all, I've made a test student account. So everything that you annotate, it is sent to me and I can see your annotation. So we want to make sure that we are looking for, the specifics. So I'm going to keep on reading. He looked as if he were 14 or 15, frail and willow wild in his tennis shoes and blue jeans. The woman said, "You ought to be my son. I would teach you right from wrong. Least I can do right now is wash your face. Are you hungry?" "No," said the being-dragged boy. "I just want you to turn me loose." "Was I bothering you when I turned that corner?" asked the woman. "No." "But you put yourself in contact with me," said the woman. If you think that contact is not going to last a while, you got another thought coming. When I get through with you, sir, you're going to remember Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. Sweat popped out on the boy's face and he began to struggle. Mrs. Jones stopped, jerked him around in front of her, and put a half Nelson about his neck, and continued to drag him up the street. When she got to her door, she dragged the boy inside, down a hall, and into the large kitchenette-furnished room at the rear of the house. She switched on the light and left the door open. The boy could hear the other roomers, laughing and talking in the large house. Some of their doors were open too, so he knew he and the woman were not alone. The woman still had him by the neck in the middle of her room. She said, "What's your name?" "Roger," answered the boy. "Then, Roger, you go to that sink and wash your face," said the woman, whereupon she turned him loose, at last. Roger looked at the door, looked at the woman, looked at the door, and went to the sink. I'll stop here because, again, I've noticed a character acting in a way that surprised me. When authors show us characters doing something that contradicts what we would expect, we need to stop and consider what's happening. Earlier, Roger wanted to escape, but now she's let him go, and he can run. But he chose to go to the sink and to go wash his face like she told him to. And so, we need to ask ourselves that same question whenever we see the contradiction. Why is the character doing that? And so, again, I see another contradiction, so I'm going to highlight this right here. With the red highlight, I'm going to highlight it one more time, and I'm going to write next to this, contrast and contradiction. Because this is something that, heck yeah, is entirely different than what we were anticipating. And so I'm going to go ahead and go back. We're going to touch base here where it says, "Let the water run." "So let the water run until it gets warm," she said. "Here's a clean towel." "You gonna take me to jail?" asked the boy, bending over the sink. "Not with that face. I would not take you nowhere," said the woman. "Here I am trying to get home to cook me a bite to eat, and you snatch my pocketbook. Maybe you ain't been to supper either, late as it be, have you?" "There's nobody home at my house," said the boy. "Then we'll eat," said the woman. "I believe you're hungry, or been hungry, or try to snatch my pocketbook." "I wanted a pair of blue suede shoes," said the boy. "Well, you didn't have to snatch my pocketbook to get some suede shoes," said Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. "You could have asked me." "Ma'am?" The water dripping from his face, the boy looked at her. There was a long pause, a very long pause. After he dried his face, not knowing what else to do, dried it again, The boy turned around, wondering what next. The door was open. He could make a dash for it down the hall. He could run. The woman was sitting at the daybed. After a while she said, "I were young once, and I wanted things I could not get." There was another long pause. The boy's mouth opened, then he frowned, but not knowing he frowned. The woman said, "Uh-huh. And you thought I was going to say 'but,' didn't you? You thought I was going to say, 'but I didn't snatch people's pocketbooks.' Well, I wasn't going to say that." Pause. Silence. "I have done things too, which I would not tell you, son. Neither tell God, if you didn't already know. So you sit down while I fix us something to eat. You might run that comb through your hair so you will look presentable." I'm going to stop here because this, again, is another great contrast and contradictions. We hear her say, where is it? "I have done things too, which I would not tell you, son, neither tell God, if you hadn't already know. So I'm going to sit down, fix us something to eat. You might run that comb through your hair so you'll look presentable." Wow, again, y'all, this is something crazy. Now we see that, this lady, she can level with him. So again, contrast and contradiction. This is something that we are not used to. She's basically saying, hey, I've been in your shoes too. So this is another, good point to stop at. All right, I'm going to pick up where we left off. In another corner of the room behind a screen was a gas plate and an icebox. Mrs. Jones got up and went behind the screen. The woman did not watch the boy to see if he was going to run now, nor did she watch her purse, which she left behind on the daybed. But the boy took care to sit on the far side of the room where he thought she could easily see him out of the corner of her eye, if she wanted to. He did not trust the woman not to trust him, and he did not want to be mistrusted now. "Do you need somebody to go to the store?" asked the boy. "Maybe get some milk or something?" "Don't believe I do," said the woman, "unless you just want some sweet milk yourself. I was going to make cocoa out of this canned milk I got here." "That will be fine," said the boy. She heated some lima beans and ham she had in the icebox, made the cocoa, and set the table. The woman did not ask the boy anything about where he lived or his folks or anything else that would embarrass him. Instead, as they ate, she told him about her job in a hotel beauty shop that stayed open late, what the work was like, how all kinds of women came in and out, blondes, redheads, and Spanish, and then she cut him a half of her 10-cent cake. "Eat some more, son," she said. When they were finished eating, she got up and said, "Now here, take this $10 and buy yourself some blue suede shoes. And next time do not make the mistake of latching onto my pocketbook nor nobody else's, because shoes come by devilish like that will burn your feet. I got to get my rest now, but I wish you would behave yourself, son, from here on in." She led him down the hall to the front door and opened it. "Good night. Behave yourself, boy," she said, looking out to the street. The boy wanted to say something other than "thank you, ma'am" to Mrs. Luella Bates, Washington Jones, but although his lips moved, he couldn't even say that as he turned at the foot of the barren stoop and looked up at the large woman in the door. He barely managed to say thank you before she shut the door, and he never saw her again. Okay, so we're here at the end, and, I really want you guys to think about what are the contrasts that we saw. We see this boy at the beginning, and we have such a negative, attitude about him because he was stealing somebody's purse. But then how do we feel about him at the very end? And these are the things that I want you guys to look at as we're looking through character, contrast, and contradictions. And this is just the first one. So today, when you're annotating through the story that I've assigned you on Common Lit, I want you to make sure that you are only showing me where you view the character, contrast, and contradictions.